Hey everybody, today we are focused on can we take a graph of all the different types of graphs that we've learned and can we turn it into an equation? And we are specifically focusing on those horizontal shifts going left and right. So if we take a look at our blue graph on the left, we got y equals, and we know that we have the absolute value graph. I'm going to go ahead and make a wide grouping for the absolute value. I'm not going to have a number at the end over here because there's no vertical shift up or down. The vertex has simply moved 3 spots over to the left. Now, while we know that x is -3, I'm actually going to put an x plus 3 in here because what I need to think about is if I plugged -3 in, where would it lead me? Let's think. If I plugged -3 in, that would lead me to 0. And what is that point that we're looking at? -3, 0. So I'm almost thinking 0. How do I get to 0? If I need a -3, then my equation better have a +3 so that that can become my 0 point or my starting point or my vertex. On the red one, I know that this looks like a linear equation that you may have done with y equals mx plus b, but I'm going to go ahead and do it as a horizontal shift, and we'll see how it's similar to what you've learned with y equals mx plus b. This is the y equals x parent graph with the line. I'm going to go ahead and make a group, and I'm not going to put anything out here. I'm not going to view this as a vertical shift. I know some of you may look at this and go, ooh, that line is bumped up. I'm going to view it as a horizontal shift. This is at -2, so think, if I plugged -2 in for x, how would I get to 0? +2. -2 plus 2 gets me to 0. That point, if you plug in -2, it gets you -2, 0. Now here's kind of the magic. You guys know this is y equals mx plus b. Isn't that +2 right there? Isn't that like y equals x and then a +2 vertical shift? Yeah, it is. That's because the y equals x parent graph doesn't really have a grouping symbol. So that's kind of the oddball there. But notice that it still works. It takes you back to Algebra 1 there. Y equals, we've got x squared. Watch how I set this up. X squared. I will not be putting a number over here because that's a vertical shift and it's going to move it up. And look, this parabola is not moved up. How do I get it to be at 3, 0? If I plugged in 3, how would I get that to turn to 0? -3. So it's simply the opposite. If I plug in 3, I'm going to get 0. So I'm focused on the group. I'm focused in with the x's because that's the x-axis. That's how you move something in a horizontal shift. Okay? Awesome. So we're focusing on putting the groups in there. Sometimes even if there aren't groups, we're putting the groups in there. And even x squared doesn't really have a group, but we need to move this in the x direction. So I'm thinking about putting something in there with that x, and that's exactly what I did up on the problem there. On our second slide, we're going to go ahead and do 3 more. We've got y equals the square root of x. I need this to go in the group with the x, so it moves in the x direction. So here's my grouping symbol. I'm simply going to move it over. How do I get -4, 0 to be a point? I'm going to do +4. I can prove it to you by plugging in -4, and that gets me to 0. Cool, there's my equation, as simple as that. On the purple one, we've got y equals x cubed. It doesn't really have a grouping symbol, so you have to make one. You have to make a group with the x so the graph will move in the x direction. How do I get it to go to -1? I need a +1. Prove it. Plug in -1. You get 0 cubed, which is 0. So that point right there is -1, 0. There's the proof. All right, so again, it's kind of the opposite. Y equals 1 over x. I need to group this number in with the x since it is shifted over 3 spots to the right. So I'm simply going to make a bigger fraction so I can put a number in with the x. This one's over at +3, so how can I make that a point? -3. So if I plug in 3 into that group there on the denominator. 3 minus 3 is going to take me to that 0 point. So I'm putting a group in that equation even though there isn't one. Okay? You can write it with parentheses or without on this one. I think it's smarter to write it with parentheses because back in this purple one, we need parentheses to get it in with the x. You don't have to put parentheses on the green one because you already have your grouping symbol right there. That's kind of the same idea as the parentheses.